Hello and welcome back to 5-Minute Bible Study. Today we are reading Jonah chapter 1 verse 17 through chapter 2 verse 10. Let's read these verses together. The Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the belly of the fish. I called to the Lord in my distress, and he answered me. I cried out for help from deep inside Sheol. You heard my voice. You threw me into the depths, into the heart of the seas, and the current overcame me. All you breakers and your billows swept over me. But I said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look once more towards your holy temple. The water engulfs me up to the neck. The watery depths overcame me. Seaweed was wrapped around my head. I sank to the foundations of the mountains. The greatest gates shut behind me forever. Then you raised my life from the pit, Lord my God. As my life was fading away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you, to your holy temple. Those who cherish worthless idols abandon their faithful love. But as for me, I will sacrifice to you with a voice of thanksgiving. I will fulfill what I have vowed. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Then the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. So last week, we saw the sailors began to worship the Lord. The sailors then cast Jonah out into the raging sea, and then the waters calmed. Today, we see Jonah finally hitting rock bottom in his descent, with attempting to run away from God. A common theme we saw in the first chapter is Jonah's descent from going down to Joppa, going down into the ship, and now we see Jonah going down into the heart of the sea and later down into the belly of this fish. Jumping down into verse 17, God appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah. The word for to appoint shows up 4 times in the book of Jonah. This word will show up 3 more times later in chapter 4 when God appoints a plant to give shade for Jonah. God appointed a worm to attack the plant, and then later God appoints a wind to come upon Jonah. God appointed this great fish to swallow Jonah as the means in which he accomplished his will. As one scholar writes, the belly of the fish is not a happy place to live, but it is a good place to learn. With God appointing this fish, it shows that God is sovereign over the creatures of the sea, the same way that he is sovereign over plants, animals, and wind. Now notice that this verse says Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Some scholars argue that the significance for this is to demonstrate this idea of death to life. If you think about the death of Lazarus in John 11, it is told that Lazarus has been dead for 3 days, meaning he was actually dead. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus makes reference to Jonah in Matthew 12 by making reference to his bodily resurrection is to come. This theme of death to life ties together with what Jonah says in 2:2 about going into Sheol, whereas Sheol represents the place of the dead both for the righteous and unrighteous. Now in 2:1, Jonah prays to the Lord his God. This is the first time we see Jonah praying. Back in 1:6, the captain told Jonah to call out to his God, but the author never makes reference to Jonah actually praying. Notice how the author describes to whom Jonah prays to. It is the Lord his God. I think this ought to be a reminder to us all that the Lord never ceased being Jonah's God despite his behavior. As Christians, we must be reminded that our God remains faithful even when we disobey or try to run away from him. As Paul says in 2 Timothy 2, if we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. While Jonah is in the belly of this fish, he witnesses God's grace and mercy. And Jonah gives thanks to the Lord for rescuing him out of his distress. The Lord disciplines him in allowing him to go through these trials and sufferings in order for him to see the need for God's grace and walk in obedience. And just like Jonah, sometimes the Lord disciplines us by allowing us to spiral downward in order for us to turn back to him in obedient faith while remaining in close relationship with him. It doesn't matter how far we run away from God, our God is ready to welcome us back. Thank you for joining me for 5-minute Bible study. Next week, we will dive deeper into this death to life theme, looking at Matthew 12. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.